The Bride Who Waits. Chapter 17. The next morning, through her bedroom window, Mira caught sight of Joshua walking through the garden with Isabel. The woman was chattering away, not seeming to let the young man get a word in edgewise, as she related to him some story that required a large amount of hand gestures. He was smiling pleasantly enough, but she could tell he was not enjoying himself, as he tried to direct Isabel's attention to a grove of flowers, to which she replied with a dismissive gesture. The sight of her former friend and Joshua together made her heart ache, as she wondered if the woman was telling the young man more things he should be wary of with Mira. Had she told him of the secrets they had shared in the boat ride? Perhaps she'd made up new stories to make him regret ever having heard her name. The thought made her sick, but she forced herself to head down to breakfast, where she overheard some women who were talking about their experience so far at the palace. There were these really delicious grapes that grow out in the garden. The guy who grows them is really nice. He doesn't seem to mind how many you eat. You should try some. I'm allergic to grapes, but you know what is delicious? Those wild berries we found on our ride yesterday. The other woman brightened even more at the memory. That was a lovely ride. And the spot they took us to was even more beautiful than that first ride. Beth Natasha doesn't have anywhere nearly as beautiful as Shiloh. A third woman chimed in as she said, "What about the lake? The picnic was so pleasant and the food was exquisite. I never knew vegetables could taste so good as the main dish. If the prince doesn't choose me as his bride, I wouldn't mind just sticking around for the lovely scenery and pleasant company. Everyone here is so nice. At first I found it annoying, but now I can't see myself living anywhere else." The other girls nodded as they continued with their discussion, their faces bright with joy. Past the girls, she heard Elizabeth's voice as she was telling another woman, "I can't believe it." Mira was about to tune her ears away from the conversation, as she guessed the woman was beginning a gossip session about someone she just a minute ago called friend. But instead she surprised Mira by saying, "I'm such a jerk." The woman looked genuinely upset by the thought, as she told the other woman she was speaking with, "I didn't realize it till I got here, what a negative person I've been. All I've ever done is see bad in people. It's sick, but I even got a kick out of finding out people's flaws and sharing them with others. But now I see that didn't make me happy at all. Everyone here is so nice and doesn't have an ill word to say about anyone. I want to be like that, but can I ever change?" Mira wondered that about herself as she pushed away her half-finished meal and headed out for a walk. At a patch of lilies she knelt down to admire the flowers, which looked even more beautiful close up. As she studied them, she heard a voice calling out sweetly through the garden air. Past the flowers, she spotted Lois, smiling pleasantly as she grabbed onto a man's hand, then pulled him along as she asked, "Are you ready?" As the man came into view, she saw it was Joshua, who smiled kindly as he followed along, letting out a jovial laugh as he said, "Slow down, it's not going anywhere." "But I want to see it." "You will, just wait. The other ladies want to come as well." Turning away from Lois, he cast his eyes behind him as he looked for the rest of the ladies who were accompanying them on their journey. A journey, Mira realized, she knew nothing about. Had she missed the invitation, or was she purposefully not invited? Maybe Joshua had never really enjoyed spending time with her. Maybe Isabel had finally convinced him of her unworthiness to be there while she'd been sick. Then she recalled his kind smile the previous day when he had eaten her pie. Why would he have acted that way if he did not care for her company anymore? She knew it could only be because he was such a nice guy that he had treated her in such a manner. In truth, he probably wished she had left with the rest of the southern Beth Natasha women. Feeling her eyes sting with the prospect, she leapt up as she rushed away, even as the rest of the party arrived. Having not been paying attention to her surroundings, she felt her escape come to a stop as she ran into another body. "Whoa, where are you going to in such a rush?" Mira cursed herself for not paying attention, as she saw it was Isabel. "Nowhere, I just—" Looking past her, Isabel saw Lois and Joshua as they were joined by 4 other women. "I guess she got to him first today. Even with other women there, she's going to make sure he pays attention to her only. Guess you and I are out of luck in building up our points with him." Confused by the woman's words, she asked her what she meant. "Oh, you know what I mean. Don't play coy with me. You may have scored some sympathy points because of your fever, but that gave her more time to move in. That fever may have lost you your hold on him. Seems we're both going to have to return to our old lives sans crown." Not understanding the woman at all, she tried to leave with a simple goodbye, but was stopped as Isabel grabbed her arm. "About the pie yesterday. It wasn't as bad as I made it seem. But at least I didn't feed it to a horse. She cast an accusatory look back in Lois's direction. Thanks, I guess, but I should be going. She mumbled out an excuse, then hurried on her way. Though it hurt her to think she'd never been anything to Joshua, it hurt more to think she'd lost both of her only friends in the whole world. As if anyone could ever truly care about you. Chapter 18. The next time she saw Joshua, he was by himself. Finally. But then she heard someone call to him, and he turned away from her before she could get his attention. The person who had called him turned out to be another servant, who came running over with the panicked book. Saying something that seemed to alarm him, the two hurried off together. Thinking that something bad must have happened, she also hurried after them, hoping to be of some help to someone. The panic, it turned out, was over a young boy, who had climbed up a tree and was too scared to climb back down. "Don't worry, Noah, I'll come and get you," stated Joshua, as he climbed up the tree. Just at the branch the boy had crawled out onto, he paused to have the boy come the rest of the way toward him. "I'm too scared. I don't want to fall." "You won't. I've got you. Trust me." Those words seemed to be enough for the child, as he scooted across the branch toward the young man. Just as he came within reach of his rescuer, the branch broke, and both Mira and the boy cried out as he started to plummet. Before he could fall to his injury, Joshua caught a hold of his shirt, stopping his descent as he held him there for a moment, suspended in the air. With a grunt, Joshua pulled the boy up to himself, giving the boy a chance to grab onto him, as the young man climbed back down the tree with the boy clinging to his back. "Thank you," stated the woman, who had first called Joshua. The boy thanked him as well, while his mother inspected him for injuries, to find the only harm that had come to him was his shirt, which had torn in the back. "This was your best shirt, too. What were you doing climbing a tree in your best shirt? You know we are visiting with the king today." "Here," stated Joshua, as he proceeded to take off his shirt and hand it to the boy. "I know it's a little big, but you'll grow into it." Thanking him, the boy hurried off to change into the shirt, which he treated like a warrior's badge of honor. "Thank you," stated the mother, with a slight bow, as she proceeded to race after the boy while calling after him, "Let me at least take it in before the dinner." Turning, Joshua noticed Mira for the first time as he smiled at her. Noting her staring, he asked her if everything was okay. "I was just thinking how wonderful you are, and how I wish I could be like you." Her words confused him as he inquired, "Be like me?" "You never have an unkind word to say about anyone, and you are always so helpful. Sometimes I think you'd even give your life so that others might be happy. How does one become like you?" His smile warmed her heart as he replied, "I get it from my father. He's the most loving person I know. As I look to him, I can't help but reflect his character. But how?" "It's love. His love fills me so that it spills out to others. That pure love can't help but change you, to be a more loving person." Mira felt doubt for him as she replied, "Can love really change you that much? Can love really make a selfish person selfless, make an evil person good?" "The love I have can. When you experience this kind of love, you can't help but be changed. And as you are filled with it, you will also be filled with a desire to share it, and as you do, it will only grow more." She still could not believe as she said, "Love's not like that. It makes you just think about yourself and what you can get out of the relationship, how you will be benefited." "That's not real love," stated Joshua. He looked sympathetic as he stepped towards her, to take her hand in his as he comfortingly said, "Real love does not hurt the one it cares for. It does not hurt anyone. And it always thinks of what is best for others over itself. It is willing to sacrifice, even the crown, in order that others might have a better life." "I don't understand." Someone called to him from behind, and he looked torn between leaving her in her confused state and helping the other person. "Go," she told him. "You could spend forever explaining it, and I'll never get it." "You will. Will you meet me at the arbor later?" Though she doubted her simple brain would ever comprehend his words, she agreed to the meeting. After lunch, she headed to the arbor, where she found Rebecca waiting for her. "I have a message from Joshua," stated the young girl, with a very businesslike demeanor. "Something else came up, but I'll meet with you later. Promise." Mira thanked the girl for her message as she turned to go. Something in her reaction told the young girl she doubted the young man's words, as Rebecca called after her, "He promised! Joshua always keeps his promises." "It's okay. I know he has other chores." In her mind, she thought of all the people he cared for throughout the castle grounds and other lands. He had enough people to worry about. He did not need one more. The girl looked adamant as she insisted, "He will come. He always comes." She patted the girl's head as she assured her she believed her, but even she couldn't convince herself as she headed away from the arbor. It was after dinner, and the sun was still holding itself just above the horizon as she turned in early in hopes of getting to the next day faster. Hearing a sound at her window, she walked over to find Joshua gazing up at her, with the light of the setting sun making his eyes look like two burning coals. "What are you doing? I thought I told you I'd come." With a confused expression, she replied, "I didn't think you'd find the time." "Of course I would. I promised we'd hang out today, so let's go. I want to show you something." After getting changed, she slipped out, meeting him in the grape arbor, where he showed her all the things that had grown in the short time she'd been bedridden. When he finished, she looked at him in amazement as she said, "How has so much grown in such a short time?" She asked with a twinkle in her eyes, "Or was I out longer than you said?" He smiled. "No, the soil here is maintained and full of all kinds of nutrients." She looked back at the ground as she knelt down to scoop up a handful of dirt. "Amazing. I wish I could take some of this home with me. It would really help my crops." Looking back at Joshua, she found him looking at her curiously. When she asked him about it, he told her to follow him. "I want to show you something." The sun had finally set as he led her into the woods behind the palace. Through the branches of the trees, moonlight shone like curtains of light, making the woods look like an enchanted forest. On a fallen log they stopped to gaze at the moonbeams, as they seemed to be dancing while the wind moved the tree leaves above. "I could stay here forever," stated Mira with a contented sigh. "Would you like to?" She gave him a curious look as she said, "What, are you going to put a good word in for me with the prince?" His grin made her heart quiver as he replied, "I could. We are very close." The statement seemed to amuse him as he laughed. "It would be nice, but I have too many responsibilities back home." "This could be your new home." "I very much doubt the prince is going to choose me to be his queen. Lois is so much better suited to the role of queen. Even Isabel would be a better fit." At the mention of the woman's name, her eyes began to sting, as tears threatened to fall. Sensing the pain in her voice, Joshua tried to dissuade her tears as he told her, "They are both great, and I'd love for them to stay, but you are no less suited than either of them. In fact, if all the remaining ladies wanted to stay, that would be my greatest joy." She smiled at him, thinking how funny it was that he thought his opinion mattered to the prince's final decision. "You're saying, even if I don't become queen, I could stay?" He nodded. "But I am a citizen of Prince Jair's realm." Shaking his head, he reminded her, "Jair doesn't really own Bethnatesh. It belongs to the prince, and as soon as he has chosen his queen and things are ready, he's going to reclaim the land, and then anyone who wants to can come and live here." "And those that want to stay in Bethnatesh?" He became somber as he replied, "If they prefer Jair's rule, then they will have to suffer the same fate as he." The sad look in his eyes made her not want to ask what the fate was, as she tried to change the subject. "What is Mikhail going to do with Bethnatesh once he's taken it back?" "He's going to rebuild it, make it as it was supposed to be, before Jair usurped it. It will become as beautiful as it is here." He motioned to their surroundings, which he had to admit she wouldn't have minded seeing in her home country. "It really is beautiful here. Not just visually, but also all the people are so kind and caring to one another. I don't have to worry about going out at night or having my things stolen. I do wish Bethnatesh would become like this place. It can, and it will. But first the prince needs to choose his queen?" He nodded. "Do you have any idea who he's going to choose?" Before he could reply, they heard a twig snap and turned to see a doe standing in a small clearing in the woods. The animal paused in its movement as it looked at the two humans, its ears twitching. "It's so beautiful." Beside her, Joshua started toward the deer, who stared at him curiously. "Wait, don't! You're going to scare it away." "The animals in Shiloh are not afraid of us. They know we won't hurt them." As he said this, he began to pet the deer, who let out a contented sigh. Turning back to her, he motioned for her to come. Hesitantly, she approached the animal, afraid she might spook it, as she made sure not to make any sudden movements. When she was close enough for him to take her hand, Joshua pulled her the rest of the way, as he placed it on the deer. "You have nothing to be afraid of." "I'm not afraid. I just don't want to scare her." He smiled as he started to pet the animal. "I told you, the animals here know we are safe." As she petted the deer, it turned its head, bumping its nose against her as if telling her to stop. "I'm sorry." She pulled her hand away. "No, that means she likes you." Putting her hand back on the animal's soft fur, he had her scratch it behind the ears. "She can sense that you are a gentle soul." "No one has ever called me that." "You are. You just also have a little roughness surrounding the gentleness." She laughed at the analogy. "Oh, is that what it is?" There was another sound of branches breaking, as they turned to see a large male deer, whose antlers looked like a miniature tree. Heading over to the large animal, Joshua motioned for her to come over. When she had, he lifted her up, placing her on top of the deer's back. "What are you—" "It's okay, he doesn't mind." The animal seemed to agree, as he shook his head, letting out a satisfied snort. "Give him a gentle nudge." She did, and immediately the animal leapt forward, racing through the trees with a skill that even a horse could not have managed, as the deer easily dodged trees, ducking under branches, then leaping high over fallen trees. Holding on to the animal's antlers, she felt her heart beat within her chest, seeming as if she were screaming with each compression. After a while she calmed down, when she realized that the deer knew what it was doing, and she would be all right. She then started to enjoy herself, letting out a delighted laugh, as the deer cleared a high stump, making her heart leap within her chest with delight. When the deer finally came to a stop, both were panting, as Joshua helped her down, the deer having gone around in a circle coming back to his mate. "Thank you," said Mira to the deer, as she petted his neck. He let out a short snort as if saying, "It's no problem," and then he and the female deer walked off together. "Well?" inquired Joshua. "It was amazing! I've never experienced anything like it." He smiled. "I'm glad you enjoyed it." As it was getting even darker outside as the night increased, they headed back to the castle. Along the way, she found her eyes wandering to his hand, as she felt an overpowering urge to take a hold of it. In the end she resisted, as he stopped with her at the door to her bedroom. "Good night. I'll see you in the morning. Is that a promise?" He smiled, and she felt her heart faint inside her chest. "It is." There was no way she could go home now. Chapter 19. Mira looked up as the servant called out her name the next morning at breakfast. "Lady Mira, I have a note for you." Taking the note, Mira recognized the handwriting as belonging to her mother. Inside, she found a note from the woman stating how she had come down with pneumonia and had been taken by Prince Jared to a northern hospital very near the border. "I do not know how much time I have left with this world. Come and see me at the border before I leave to see your father." Noting her sudden paleness, Isabel asked her what was wrong. "It's my mother. She's sick. I have to go see her." "But if you go across the border, you might not be allowed back in." "I have to risk it." Gathering a few things, she borrowed a horse from the stables and rode to the border. Just at the edge, she spotted a carriage, which was waiting for her. The windows were open to let in the cool breeze, and through them she saw the woman covered in blankets and looking to be shaking with her sickness. "Mom?" Entering the carriage, her worry increased as she reached out to pull away the covering from her mother's face. "Mother, are you all right?" The blanket dropped away, surprising her as she found Prince Jared in place of her mother. "Your Highness, what are you doing here?" "I came to deliver a message." "Is it my mother? Has the pneumonia already taken her?" "No, but your mother and I need you to do something for us." "What?" Reaching under the blanket, he pulled out a short knife, which from tip to hilt was as long as her palm. "I want you to use this to kill the prince." "What? What are you saying?" "This is the perfect opportunity to end that family's awful reign. You have a chance to free our people and be a national hero." The dagger seemed to glint at her with an evil light, which called to her to take it in her hands. Turning away, she shook her head. "I can't." He placed it in her hands, the blade feeling as cold as ice against her flesh. "You have to, for the people, for your mother, for you." She felt his hand touch her skin, making her flesh instantly hot as he turned his face toward him. "For us." She did not know what he meant till he pressed his lips against hers, making her feel as if she was kissing live coals. The image of Joshua's twinkling eyes came to mind as she pulled away, pushing him back so that he could not try anything more. "No!" Opening the carriage, she got out, stepping back onto the castle soil. Turning back, she watched as Jared halted at the last step of the carriage as he watched her. "I know the prince is a terrible person, but I cannot kill him." "Not even to save yourself? What do you mean?" "The prince does not take kindly to liars." I have not lied to him about anything. Prince Jair's eyebrow rose as he acted as if he already knew the answer. Really? Yes. Maybe you haven't lied yet, but what are you going to do on your wedding night if he selects you? Mira felt a cold chill run through her body as the man stared at her with an intense look of accusation. How do you know about that? He smiled in a way that made her want to hide as he said, Just think about my suggestion. For your mother's sake. Grabbing a hold of her, he pulled her into another kiss, which this time made her feel as if she'd fallen under the ice. Finally releasing her, he turned back into the carriage, calling for the driver to go on. Standing there with her body shaking, as if it was the middle of winter, she finally turned away, stopping when she spotted Joshua sitting atop Honeycup. He was watching the carriage as she called to him, asking what he was doing there. I was going to tell you that you could go see your mother. Was that her? She shook her head, feeling guilty as she hid the dagger in the pocket of her dress. No, she stayed behind. I guess she wasn't as sick as she let on. Getting up on the horse she'd ridden, she noted how he kept looking back after the carriage. Did you see? See? Who was inside? Why? She shook her head. No reason. Together they rode back, both lost in their own thoughts, neither one saying a word to the other as they arrived back at the stables. Joshua? He looked at her, his eyes looking to be elsewhere, as the spark was not there as at other times. If you had the chance to get rid of great evil, but to do so you'd have to end up killing someone, would you do it? If that evil were truly evil, and to get rid of them meant everyone could be freed from their tyranny, yes, I would. He stepped toward her, taking her hands in his own, returning warmth to her body. But you do not have to. It is not your role to end a life. She did not understand completely what he meant, but she felt reassured, simply by his presence. Hugging him, she thanked him for the advice, then headed back to her room. Along the way she passed the lake, where she stopped to stare out at the waters. Reaching into her pocket, she pulled out the dagger, which seemed to wink at her. With a frown, and less thought about it than her mother would have liked, she threw the dagger into the lake, turning away then as she continued on. Evil or not, she was no murderer. Prince Jair sent me a message tonight, whispered one woman to another. They were huddled in an alcove down a hall, and had not noticed Mira as she walked past. Hearing the prince's name, she paused as she hid away, so as to hear the rest of their conversation. He says if I can get close to the prince tonight, then I should take the opportunity to use this. Is that poison? Do you think that's wise? Asked the other woman. What? He asked both of us to try to get this far, so we could get close to Mikhail. If you're not going to do anything, then I will. But I'm not so sure that the prince is as bad as we've been told. His people seem to love him, and they talk about him as if he's the kindest person in the world. I just wonder if we haven't misunderstood him. Maybe he's not as bad as his father. Hold your tongue. Prince Jair's the only one that cares about us. That's just the thing, added the second woman. I don't know if he does. My father works for Jair collecting the taxes, and he says he's never once sent the money away to the king. It's always gone straight to Jair. I'm pretty sure he's the one that's bleeding the land dry. There was a sound like flesh eating flesh, as the second woman angrily told her, I cannot believe you would accuse Prince Jair of something so vile. When I return home, I shall tell him that you are no longer loyal to Beth Tesh. With that, the woman exited the alcove, walking away with a haughty look as she made her way down the hall. The second woman looked miserable as she came out so the Mira could see her. Seeing Mira watching her, she asked, Do you think I did the right thing? Before Mira could answer, she continued, I guess I just figured the prince can't be all that bad to have someone like Joshua in employment. He's such a pure soul, and I don't think he'd ever stay with someone who is really as cruel as they say. I think so too. Though she hadn't thought about it before, it made sense to her now as she said it. It was just too much for her to believe that all the servants could fake loving someone who was supposed to be as terrible as Prince Mikhail. One of them would have to let slip to someone that it was all a farce, and there would have been signs somewhere of his evil. But she had as of yet to find anything. I should go tell someone about her, stated the woman as she hurried off. Remembering the look in Prince Jair's eyes before he'd ridden away, Mira started to wonder if she'd been admiring the wrong prince. Chapter 20. Today will be your last night at the castle, before the prince sends you home while he makes his final decision, declared Nehemiah that night at dinner. After the woman with the poison vial had been escorted off the premises, the running to be the prince's future bride was down to 20, including Mira. Remembering how many had been there when they started, it seemed strange to her that only a small number were left now, especially when the prince had not dismissed any of them. All the remaining women seemed especially keen on staying, as Nehemiah gave them their final instructions. But before you leave, the prince would like to give you an opportunity to ask him some questions, so that you might make a decision whether you would like to continue. Across the room, Mira caught Isabel looking at her. Seeing her ex-friend made her sad as she looked away, trying to concentrate on Nehemiah's words, as he told them what order they would go in to talk with the prince. Lois was the first one to have a chance to talk with the prince, as she headed away from the dining table. "There's no way any of us stand a chance with her here," lamented one woman to another, as she watched Lois go. "I don't really care about the prince anymore," stated the woman she'd been talking to. "I just hope he'll let us come visit here after he's made his decision. Oh, me too, it's so lovely here." As the rest ate, Isabel tried to get Mira's attention. Finally, she pushed the woman out of the chair next to Mira as she took her place. "Mira, we need to talk. I sense that I've hurt you somehow, and I just want to apologize. You've really been my only friend here, and I should have treated you better." Mira was sure Isabel did not know she'd overheard her conversation with Joshua, but looked genuinely apologetic as she said, "I wish I could do it all over. I wouldn't have focused on trying to get the crown, but would have spent more time with you." She sounded genuinely choked up, and Mira almost forgave her, but her practical nature told her it was all a lie, as Isabel told her, "I enjoyed the little time we got to spend together, and I see too late that you are the only genuine person here. I wish I had been more like you." When Mira didn't even raise her eyes to look at her, Isabel let out a heavy sigh. "All right, I understand. I just hope maybe someday you'll give me another chance." She started to go, then came back before the rightful owner of the chair had a chance to sit down. "I want you to know that no matter what happens tonight, I hope he chooses you. I know Joshua loves all of us. I can see it in his eyes. But the way he looks at you is different. You don't have anything to worry about with the other women, or even me. I won't get in your way any longer. You deserve him, and he deserves you." With that, she finally allowed the woman back into her seat as she walked away. Once she was gone, Mira had a chance to hear the reports of the women returning from their meeting with the prince. Each had their own story to tell, and their opinions of the prince varied greatly from woman to woman, as she heard one woman say, "He's so handsome," while another, who had come back before her, replied, "What do you mean? He's so plain." "I know I've made it this far," stated one woman on her return, "but if that's the prince, I think I'll pass." With those words she left the dinner, bringing the remaining number of women down to 19. When it finally came time for Mira to go in, she found herself wishing she had never come to the castle. Escorting her to a back room, the servant leading her let her into the room, then closed the door behind her. Ahead of her she saw Nehemiah standing with a young man seated beside him. The man was dressed in fine clothes, but Mira did not pay him much attention as she came and sat down across from him. "You may ask the prince any question you wish," announced Nehemiah. Without even completely thinking it through, Mira answered, "I have no questions. There'd be no point to it. I'm in love with someone else." This seemed to startle Nehemiah, as he made a sound indicating his surprise. In front of her, the prince did not seem startled at all as he simply said, "Very well, you may leave." Without looking back, she exited the room, confusing the servant who had been waiting to escort her back. "Done so soon?" Continuing past the dining hall, she headed out into the back garden, the fresh smell of grapes greeting her before she'd taken more than a step outside. Under the arbor, she took a moment to regain her composure as she thought about all that had happened to her during her time there. Soon she would be on her way home, probably never again to return to the castle and her friends she'd made there. Stealing grapes again? The usual lightness was not in Joshua's voice as he looked at her and seemed hesitant even to approach her. In that moment her feelings overwhelmed her as she began to cry. In an instant he was by her side as he asked her what was wrong. "I wish you were the prince." "Why?" "Because you're so nice and wonderful and such a hard worker. You deserve to rule the kingdom, not him. Plus, if you were the prince, I could stay here with you forever." "Why would you want that? Don't you want to go home?" She shook her head. "I don't. Not anymore." "Why not?" "Because you're not there." The light slowly returned to his eyes as he asked, "And if I were the prince, and I chose you to be my bride?" "I would say yes." Her heart felt like it was breaking inside her, as she finally admitted what had been growing inside her since the first time they'd met. "I love you, Joshua. You are the only man for me." He looked beyond pleased, and was about to say something to her when a servant came outside. Bowing slightly, the man told him, "Your Highness, it's time." Nodding his head to the man, Joshua thanked him. Confused by what had just occurred, Mira asked as the servant hurried away, "Why did he call you Your Highness?" The twinkle was fully back in Joshua's eyes as he rose to his feet and held out his hand to her as he instructed, "Come and see." Taking his hand, she let him lead her back into the castle, where he led her to a large ballroom where all the other ladies were gathered. There were only 11 now, and she wondered what had happened to the other 7. Among them, she noticed Isabel, and the woman who she had seen talking with the woman with the vial. Her face still looked red from the slap, but she was beaming as she talked with another woman about a subject that seemed to be dear to her heart. Leaving her with the women, Joshua stepped up to the front, where Nehemiah was waiting. On seeing him step to the front, several women in the crowd asked why a stable boy was standing in the prince's spot. "What are you talking about?" asked Mira. "Nehemiah just announced that the prince would be joining him up on stage," answered Isabel. "This must be a mistake," stated another woman nearby. "He must just be delivering a message for the prince." Another woman looked disappointed by the news as she stated, "I'd love it if Joshua were actually the prince. Maybe then he'd let me come and visit." Mira wasn't exactly sure what happened next, as Isabel pushed her toward the front where Joshua was standing. He looked so happy and was smiling at her with a light in his eyes she'd never seen before. As she approached him, he held out a cup, which Nehemiah had handed him, filled with grape juice. "Mira, will you marry me?" "You?" He nodded. "Yes, me. Will you be my wife?" Again she didn't think about her answer. She said, "Yes, I will." Smiling, he handed her the cup, which she drank, then handed back to him, as he drank the last of the liquid, then set the glass down and broke it with his right foot in a show of their engagement to each other. Taking her hands in his, he told her, "That will be the last time I let anything with grapes touch my lips, till we see each other again. Then I hope you'll make me more of your delicious grape pie." To his side, Nehemiah cleared his throat, as if to remind the young man he had other things to worry about. "Oh, yes." With a serious look, he declared to Mira, "I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you in righteousness and justice, in love and compassion." Below them, the women began to cry, some with joy, others with anguish. Though, Mira noted, Lois was really the only one that looked upset by Joshua declaring these words to her. The others looked happy, as they dabbed at their eyes, and Isabel gave her a thumbs-up gesture. With the announcement made, he looked pained as he said his goodbyes and left the room. Left alone with only the other candidates, Mira found herself unable to understand what had just occurred. "I can't believe he chose her," she heard one woman grumble behind her. "What does she have that I don't have?" "I think it's lovely," stated another. "Didn't you notice the love in his eyes?" As she stared at the door Joshua had exited through, wishing that he had come back, a hand touched her shoulder as she turned back to see Isabel. "I see now you really didn't know who he was till this moment. That you truly love him for him and not for his title." "Isabel, what just happened?" The woman smiled softly as she answered by saying, "I figured out a long time ago that Joshua wasn't the stable boy. I thought if I could make nice with him while he was keeping his true identity a secret, he might pick me, thinking I'd fallen for him without knowing. When I saw how close you two were, I thought you figured it out too. But I see now your relationship was genuine." Her expression became regretful as she said, "I'm sorry for trying to steal him from you, and for saying mean things about you. I'm glad he didn't listen to a word I said, because I know he cares about you. And though he cares for me," she motioned to the other women in the room, "for all of us, he cares for you in a different way. In that sense, he never really belonged to me. He's been yours since the first day he laid eyes on you." Still unsure about what had occurred, she asked the question that had not been answered. "Where is the prince?" "Mira, Joshua is the prince. The man you are engaged to is Prince Mikhail." If minds could shatter, Mira felt hers do so then.